and therefore a waste of time. What's more, we might say that by continuing to harp on this issue, we only marginalize ourselves, proving that we are on the fringe. I submit there is no better way to assure that an issue will always be off the table than to stop talking about it. Far from being an arcane and anachronistic issue, the gold standard and the issues it raises get right to the heart of the current debate concerning the future of war and the world economy. Why do the governments and its partisans hate the gold standard? It removes the discretionary power of the Fed by placing severe limits on the ability of the central bank to inflate the money supply. Without that discretionary power, the government has far fewer tools of central planning at its disposal. Government can regulate, which is a function of the police power. It can tax, which involves taking people's property. And it can spend, which means redistributing other people's property. But its activities in the financial area are radically curbed. Think of your local and state governments. They tax and spend. They manipulate and intervene. As with all governments from the beginning of time, they retard social progress and generally muck up things as much as possible. What they do not do, however, is wage massive global wars, run huge deficits, accumulate trillions in debt, reduce the value of money, bail out foreign governments, provide endless credits to failing enterprises, administer hugely expensive and destructive social insurance schemes, or bring about immense swings in business activity. State and local governments are awful, and they must be relentlessly checked. But they are not anything like the threat of the federal government. Neither are they as arrogant and convinced of their own infallibility and indispensability. They lack that aura of invincibility that the central government enjoys. It is the central bank, and only the central bank, that works as the government's money machine, and this makes all the difference. Now, it is not impossible that a central bank can exist alongside a gold standard, a lender of last resort that avoids the temptation to destroy that which restrains it. The same way, it's possible for someone with an insatiable appetite for wine to sit at a banquet table of delicious vintages and not take a sip. Let's just say that the existence of a central bank introduces an occasion of sin for the government. That is why under the best gold standard, there would be no central bank. Gold coins would circulate as freely as their substitutes, and rules against fraud and theft would prohibit banks from pyramiding credit on top of demand deposits. So long as we are construing the perfect system, all coinage would be private. Banks would be treated as businesses, no special privileges, no promises of bailouts, no subsidized insurance, and no connection to government at any level. This is the free market system of monetary management, which means turning over the institution of money entirely to the market economy. As with any institution in a free society, it is not imposed from above or dictated by a group of experts, but is the de facto result that comes about in a society that consistently respects private property rights, encourages enterprise, and promotes peace. It comes down to this. If you hate war, oppose the Fed. If you hate violations, of your civil liberties, oppose the Fed. If you want to restrain despotism, restrain the Fed. If you want to secure freedom for yourself and your descendants, abolish the Fed. Now we can have questions, if anybody has one.
Do you know what became of the gentleman who late last year tried to start the alternate gold barter system, and he was arrested, all of his gold was taken, he was from Florida.
You know, I'm sorry to say that I don't. This is the man who had the Liberty dollar and had the Ron Paul dollar. And I think it was not a coincidence that just as Ron's campaign got going, that the government decided to arrest this guy and made a big publicity thing that he was issuing Ron Paul dollars in competition with the Fed. So it's my understanding that his property has not been returned, but that he himself has not been jailed. So it's bad, but not quite as bad as it might be. But I'm sorry, I don't know any more than that. Yes, sir.
I want to say the man's name was Bernard von Nothaus.
Yes, Bernard von Nothaus, yeah.
Lew, great speech. Gene Carbonell, Portland, Maine. Can you explain the role of I don't know what the scientific government term is, but most people, I guess, know it as the presidential plunge team. What's their role? Are they like using a baseball analogy, is it like the Fed's a starting pitcher and they're the bullpen?
Well, it's very interesting. It's a secret cabal composed of senior officials of the Treasury and of the Federal Reserve and related staffers in the White House. It meets in secret, and because it's in secret, we can't know exactly what they do. The unofficial name for it is the plunge protection team, and there's certainly, I would say, plenty of circumstantial evidence that they finagle with the market. I mean, they deal in futures and in options and in direct buying of stocks and selling of gold and so forth in order to manipulate the financial markets. And of course, it's entirely unconstitutional, illegitimate, like I guess every single other thing in Washington. Very dangerous outfit. The people who were on it and who've been on it in the past, Murray Rothbard always used to make the point that we're never supposed to look at what happens, the antecedents of government officials or what happens to them after they leave. Considered conspiracy theory, to see who was with what banking house and then goes back to which banking house afterwards. But it's a useful device. So these guys, of course, are all connected on Wall Street and the big investment banks, and serve its purpose. And it's a very bad operation. They have a lot of faith in it. They think that it can actually prevent a stock market crash. They can't actually prevent that, but they can certainly do a lot of damage, like everything else the government does. And it's good that there's interest in it. In one of the debates, I remember that Ron Paul asked the entirely oblivious Mr. McCain about the plunge protection because he knew nothing about it, and at that time said that he really didn't know anything about economics. Of course, he's since denied that he ever said that and says, no, he's really an expert in economics, so therefore he can be trusted to run the world. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for the speech. My name is Chris Sneed from Nashville, Tennessee.
Yes, sir.
My question revolves around really what seems to be a lot of the speakers have hit on. A lot of the problem is a lack of education. What's being done in libertarian circles to address this issue in the public schools? How is it that I could graduate high school, most people graduate high school without even knowing how to balance a checkbook? Not even a basic accounting class. What could you say to that?
Well, I think a couple of points. First of all, I think the public schools exist to bring that about. That's the purpose of the public schools. They don't want to actually dumb down people, although that's the result. They want to suppress critical thinking and they want to suppress independent thinking, and they've been successful at that. So I think, although there are some great teachers in public schools who do a wonderful job. I think of Charles Burris, for example, in Arizona, and there are many others in other parts of the country. They're a tiny and battle minority, and my guess is we have to do it outside the government schools. And if I can echo Bumper, the great Albert J. Nock was once asked, in effect, what can a man do to save mankind? And he said, well, the only thing you can do for mankind is present it with one improved unit. And I'm not quite that restrictive as Mr. Nock, but still, educating ourselves is actually the first. I mean, this is something Leonard Read talked about, that we have to become beacons ourselves. We have to educate ourselves. Read, and read all the books the government doesn't want you to read, and read the websites the government doesn't want you to read. Come to conferences the government doesn't want you to come to.